Why Post Malone is a culture vulture, but Mac Miller isn't. Posted 8 hours ago by Read My Soul. So I'm not familiar with this creator, but let's see what this is about. All right.
So this is a concept that I've had in my mind for a while, and I'm recording this on Mac Miller's birthday. So before I get started, I just want to say RIP Mac Miller and happy birthday. We love you and we miss you. Mac Miller would have been 33 today, but unfortunately, we all know what had happened to him in 2018.
Okay, I went to sleep famous and I woke up invisible. Rich fucking miserable. At least I did Kimmel and Arsenio.
I've been listening to 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗡 the last few days, and it made me realize why we love Mac so much within the culture. Mac didn't push the culture away. Mac tried to push the culture forward. Unlike many white rappers that come into hip hop, and when things start getting a little stale for them, or when people call them out, they start to kick hip hop's back in. Mac is my favorite white boy rapper, and honestly, one of my favorite rappers of all time. I love Mac and I love what he stands for. If you see Mac at the beginning of his career to where he ended off, you know the transition and how he grew within hip hop and how he got better and better, and he embraced hip hop more and more. He started embracing people like Thundercats and Schoolboy Q and Ab Soul and Kendrick, and he started to play with funk and jazz, and he started to really get in his bag before his death. And this 𝗕𝗓𝗪𝗡 album makes me remember how vulnerable he was. You know, my biggest qualm with the Post Malone, with the Kid Rock, with the MGK, and all of these guys that come in hip hop is that on their way out, they try to kick hip hop's back in.
He was just like a super duper hip hop head, loved the culture. Like he was everything that Post Malone isn't.
Post Malone was famous for.
There's nothing to really say that compare. Like Post Malone and Mac Miller, it doesn't even make sense to compare the two, because Mac at every angle was somebody of the culture, constantly growing within the culture, constantly working with building everybody up within the culture as well, just kind of like Reed is saying right here. But like when you think about the people that he was working with, the people that he brought on tour with him, you know, the first time that we covered Kendrick Lamar, he was on, or at a concert, was on a Mac Miller tour, and it was Mac Miller, Wiz Khalifa, and Kendrick was the smallest on that bill. But Mac was working with everybody, you know, like I remember when he was like bigging up Rhapsody. I remember when he wanted to work with the legends, like he gave respect to legends. Like even when he got sued by Lord Finesse for that Kool-Aid and, I think it was Kool-Aid and Frozen Pizza record, he was paying homage to Lord Finesse on that by even choosing that beat to begin with.
You know, it is what it is, man. I'm still DITC supportive.
Yeah.
I know the story. I did my research on L, and I know all about Finesse. And you know, it's unfortunate that this is how it has to be right now. But you know, he feels a certain type of way, and that's okay that he feels that way. You know, I don't necessarily agree with him. I don't think I did anything wrong. I think I was just showing love to someone who inspired me. Me as a person, like I'm not out to do anything but show love to someone like Lord Finesse.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Like that's been my thing, is to put kids on to what he did in his generation and why he's important to hip hop and just music in general.
And Mac is a great testament of somebody who just can, or just did, continually improve, continually be 100% authentic. He was nothing other than exactly who he was with. That's why nobody has anything negative to say about Mac Miller that has any type of integrity.
For this, he said that hip hop isn't deep and is not about deepness. It's about money, party, and girls. You can't really, there's no emotion in it.
It was a beer tasting interview, so they put a lot of beer in my face and asked me what kind of beer tastes good to me. So, you know, knowing me, I drank it. Apparently, I said that whenever you want to feel something, don't listen to hip hop. It's funny because who the am I to tell you don't listen to this, and whenever you want to feel something, don't listen to this? Or who am I to tell you that you should feel a certain way when listening to something?
The crazy thing about that is Mac Miller was that emotion he was talking about.
What I was saying was that when I want to sit down and cry, I listen to Bob Dylan and his guitar. You know, a lot of people saying that I don't appreciate hip hop or I'm taking advantage of hip hop. You know, what I was trying to say is a lot of people, except for a handful of artists, saying the same shit. They're not saying anything super meaningful.
Stop the cap.
It's crazy the difference. If you look at
Yeah, so Post Malone there was definitely just We've talked about this so much on the New Old Heads. It's one of those things where, like, I don't feel like where Post Malone was coming from, at least in this particular one, was necessarily a bad place, like a negative place in the sense of him trying to demean hip hop. I think he was ignorant in not realizing that he was demeaning it because he didn't have respect for it in the manner that he should. But I think he did it out of ignorance. And that's the one difference between somebody like a Mac Miller versus somebody like a Post Malone.
Post Malone before he was famous.
What is this?
And you look at Mac Miller before he was famous.
Beat me, homie, better know your lane. You got a bigger chance winning if you throw the game. Paper numb, cause my pen filled with Novocaine.
You know who really was entrenched in the culture. We all got a friend like Mac Miller. We all got a white boy friend that's like Mac Miller that loves hip hop and probably knows more about hip hop and certain artists than you.
I gotta turn him up.
He's love the culture. And
Reed, your mic's a little soft, bro. Let's see if I can turn you up a little bit here.
they want to be embraced by it. They want to show and prove that they're not just an outsider trying to capitalize on it.
He paid homage to the culture and he respected the culture and he loved the culture. You know what I mean? And that's I salute Mac forever. That was a tremendous loss because that was somebody I really knew.
I say this a lot of times within this channel. Being a culture vulture is not mutually exclusive to being white, and Mac Miller proved that. On the Control verse, Mac Miller was the thing that rhymed with nigga.
Drake, Big Sean, J Electron, Tyler, Mac Miller. I got love for you all, but I'm trying to murder you niggas.
Mac Miller was seen to be one of us.
Diddy grades all the ACTs and they tell you it's a machine.
He was funny, man. Mac was super funny, super quick-witted. He's one of those dudes that, like, I kind of wish that, like, back when we were doing super hip-hop stuff with, like, bringing on the band and stuff like that, like, I wish he's one of those dudes that, like, I actually was able to cross paths with, because he seemed like he would be, like, just a really cool ass dude.
It was really just Diddy in the red pen. I heard that Diddy gives Obama shape-ups. I heard that Diddy played Tupac in Notorious.
And when I listen to Balloonerism, it reminds me so much of how he tried to dig deep and tried to express himself with no care about how people thought about him. And even though I have a video about Balloonerism coming soon, it made me understand why we embrace Mac Miller so much.
Hey, man, we just talked about Balloonerism on the New Old Heads last week on the show. And the first thing that I said was Balloonerism was beautiful. Really good album. You know, like, it is definitely tragic as you're listening to it, but it is an amazing album. Musically dense. It was thematic, but at the same time, like, you could tell it was Mac. Like, you could tell that he was speaking from, like, where he was in that particular moment.
People like Post Malone, Kid Rock, Jelly Roll, MGK, you can kind of tell their intentions. And people like Post Malone, you kind of can't stand them because I think Post Malone blamed us for blamed hip hop culture and black people for his depression because
He was called a culture vulture. How did that feel to you?
It sucked. I was a kid.
1920. How did you deal with it?
Drink a lot.
we called him out because we knew when we saw the White Iverson, we knew we was going to see this version of him.
I guess, you know, and I see this argument all the time, and in the sense that I don't disagree that he was portraying culture vulture vibes. What I can speak on behalf of the white delegation here when it comes to that is that, like, because I remember we specifically talked about Post Malone on the show. There was a topic about where we talked about him saying about, you know, he was probably depressed around it as well. And I think those feelings are valid. I'm not going to, like, take those feelings that he has and diminish those simply because he was acting in a particular way. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's the same as blaming hip hop in that type of aspect. I do think, though, on the same hand, that it is ignorance and that he has to cop to his ignorance. And I don't think it's necessarily something that people should lay off of him because he is ignorant. But I think that's speaking from an ignorant place as opposed to, I don't think it was done intentionally. I just don't. I know too many white people, you know, like, I know what it's like to unravel white privilege. I understand what it's like to go from, to deconstruct the indoctrination that is. Now, has Post Malone done all that? I don't know. But I think it's okay for him to feel depressed, because I don't think that was his intent. I think he was doing what he thought. He was trying to be as authentic as he was, and it just kind of revealed who he was a little bit.
Can tell he was using the culture to get where he wanted to, and instead of being honest about it and open about it and expressing that in songs, he weaponized his tears. Oh, I was depressed, I started drinking, I started doing all this because people called you out for what you were gonna do. Now don't get me wrong,
Again, and I stand by what I say in that manner. Like, and I'm not a Post Malone fan at all, but like, there is something to be said. Like, did he weaponize the tears a little bit? Yeah, kind of a little bit, but I think he was, again, just trying to be honest in that type of manner. And I'm not somebody that likes Post Malone at all. So
there's nothing wrong with, transitioning to other genres, but Post Malone, at every opportunity he could, he tried to disrespect hip hop. How can you say there's no emotion and there's no, feeling within hip hop when there is an artist like Mac Miller, there is an artist like J. Cole, there is an artist like Andre 3000, there is an artist like Kendrick Lamar, there is an artist like Ab-Soul who you can hear in their music.
But I think what Reed's doing here is he's kind of hyper focusing on what Post Malone was not talking about, because Post Malone was generally referencing popular culture that happens to be rap music. And I think we all know that. I think we all know that Post Malone was referencing that specifically, which in itself is a problem, and I don't deny that. But I also don't want to posit this in a way that's going to suggest that he is referencing something that he is not, even if he should know better.
Their struggles with addiction and their struggles with poverty and the things that they're going through. Guys like Post Malone deserve all that they get from the culture.
I'm not a fan of Post Malone. I have no respect for him. I think he is the definition of a culture.
That's Justin Hunt.
Vulture. Get him. He came in as Mr. Cornrow's fronts and trap beats. Get him. Called himself White Iverson. Named himself after 𝗕𝗥 Malone. Get him. Then he started dissing hip hop while still selling it. Get him. Got caught saying the N-word. Called Charlemagne the God a racist. Get him. Oh, Green Jimmy the cricket suit wearing ass motherfucker. Get him.
I don't know how many times I've watched How High.
Oh, short Colin Powell.
We're looking at Jack Harlow the same way. We're looking at him like, hold on, bro, what's your transition? Because he's from Kentucky, right? I'm pretty sure he grew up listening to a lot of country music, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just about how you go about it. Mac Miller was totally embraced by the culture because.
But again, I say this, like Mac Miller is different because Mac Miller came up in the culture, like, and which goes to Reed's point here, because his overarching point, because it's very, very much true. When you grow up within hip hop and it's a part of you and you're freestyling in middle school and high school and you're dropping records in high school, it's different than when you grow up in a different type of demographic. Like, I grew up in a very small Indiana town, and sure, I gravitated towards hip hop at an early age. I had a lot of friends that were super into hip hop, and I had a lot of, and all that stuff. And I started making music at a very early age of like high school and stuff. But there was still a lot of stuff that, because of my background and how I grew up, that I had to unpack throughout the years, that Mac just didn't have to, because he was a part of Mac a lot earlier than it was somebody even like myself. But yeah, let's just keep going.
He looked to push the genre forward and not push the genre away, man.
And I think that's the beauty of Mac. Mac was hip hop. Post Malone was just looking to get something. Miley Cyrus was just looking for their way in, and they saw something specific, But Mac is definitely different.
Love Mac. I am deeply saddened that he is not here with us. Go stream Balloonerism, because I think it's amazing. And I think Mac was one of those ones, man. It hurts my heart that he isn't here today. But there is a clear reason why we embrace Mac and why we push Post Malone away. And I think that the Post Malones of the world should understand that Mac got better. Mac got more funky, more soulful, more. Yep.
But he started bringing all that funk and all that stuff into his music, and he wasn't shunning hip hop at the same time. I know it's going to sound like I'm like caping for Post. I'm really not. And I've got all the videos out there that document that I'm not. But I do think there's a lot of nuance involved that I like to discuss in this type of conversation. But yeah, Mac got more funky. He got more musical, all while still rapping, all while still doing, also being him,
you know, he had a transition to where he was doing the frat rap. He was doing what was expected of him. And then he said no and switched. And once I heard watching movies with the sound off, Faces, Good AM, I can hear him changing.
When you up above the clouds, like who gon' touch me now? Do we ever get to know the truth?
And him getting more introspective and getting deeper, and he had a message. And you know, his struggles with addiction ultimately ended up being his demise. And you know, I love the guy. I love what he had to offer. He's my favorite white rapper. I even think a little bit of Eminem got a little bit, you know, he became a caricature of himself, and I gravitate towards more Mac Miller. He could really rap his behind off. He had Loaded Lux on an album.
You was easy, Mac, with the cheesy raps. Who the is Mac Miller?
Mac did a good job of always putting back into the culture in so many different ways, even if it like he's just notoriously known, especially in the blog era, of just working with anybody that was good. You know, like he just had good taste.
This name says crack dealing.
I just told him to diss me, but not only did he diss me, but he like followed the theme, like the story of the album, and he hadn't heard anything. I freaked out when I heard it though, definitely. I was like, then it came on, I was like, oh.
I love that. He was rapping with 𝗕𝗥𝗪𝗡𝗚 and Action Bronson. I think one of Chief Keef's best verses is on Mac Miller's album. I just love the kid, and there's a clear difference of why we embrace him and why we push Post Malone's away.
And the real enemy, if we are well-meaning white commentators and viewers of hip-hop music, the real enemy is not Kanye, it's not Drake. It's time to face the real enemy. It's Post Malone.
Post Malone, real enemy. He cooking.
Man, Post Malone.
See, I take it even a step further. Like, because shouts to Sky and shouts to Justin. I think it's deeper than that, because it's not just about Post Malone. It's about the system that allows Post Malones to exist, right? It's about white supremacy, right? It's about capitalism. It's about these systems that exist in this space that push white faces towards the top. And then white faces get in those spaces and they do what they're supposed to do in those spaces. The real issue that I have with all this is capitalism, the rap music industry, and how it differs from hip hop culture, which we'd had a big long segment on that on the New Old Heads. This is on episode 421. But also how white supremacy has infiltrated it's not even infiltrated, it's just embedded into what the United States of America is, and really Western society at that point. It's no shock to me that Post Malone's, Miley Cyrus's, and such exist in a space. I don't know if I would put Jack Harlow necessarily in there, even though he got kind of pushed to the top, like out of nowhere. Like he just became that person from Kentucky of all places, like Louisville. Like that's not even a big hip hop area, and I know this because it's only like 3 hours from where I live. But the issue really is less, to me, it's less Post Malone. It's more white supremacy. It's more commerce. It's more trying to, it's when the culture of what hip hop is turns into this, or had turned into this industry. And one thing, even with Eminem, why he's one of the biggest selling artists of all time, why he's the Elvis of rap music, like Eminem is successful even though his counterparts, the people that he got influence from, are not as successful as him. Redman should be as big as Eminem is, but he's not because he's white. And that is not Eminem's fault. Eminem exists in this, in the same way that Post Malone kind of exists in this. But certain people, certain white people in general, just tend to understand these things a little bit more, and or are a little bit more understanding depending on whatever their background is. I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm just saying that it's just kind of what it is. And the thing that I'm interested in is addressing it at the root. You know, sure, call Post Malone what he is and when he does it, and anybody else when they do it. But my enemy in this is the system of capitalism and the United States and white supremacy.
Malone, icky. Yucky. I really I knew Post Malone was gonna do that, and I never was a fan. I always looked at him funny. Him and Iggy.
Who is this? Yeah, I'm his new bitch.
John in Tennessee, go ahead. What
Yeah, she was super cringy.
you want to say?
That shit is fucking trash.
I love that moment.
Just knew what it was. You can just smell it on them. And if they were honest, we would embrace you. The black culture and hip hop culture is very forgiving. If you're honest with us, hey, we'll let you get some money with us, but don't kick our back in on the way out, especially when some of your biggest songs is because of other artists. Rockstar was written by Joey Badass.
And it's like I just kind of came up with this melody. I'm in with my shot top.
The Sunflower song, the best parts of it is Sway Lee. There is a difference between the Mac Millers of the world. Even Eminem has never, he's kind of been like, a cultural critic within his music, and it's getting even worse now to where sometimes it's like, all right, dog, how old are you, bro? Like, all right, man, let me hear some deep, you know what I'm saying? Let me get deeper than that. But like I said, being a culture vulture is not mutually exclusive to being white. We love Mac Miller. We embrace him. I got his shoes back here. I can't believe I won these on his website when they came out. The swimming 5th year anniversary Vans. Oh my goodness. I can't believe I won these. Bought all his albums day one. Recently, my wife bought me the Tiny Desk. She bought me the vinyl for this. Before Scarface did his Tiny Desk, this was the best Tiny Desk of all time.
We covered one of his events here. Well, we were co-promoted it. I think it was Mac and Childish Gambino. And I think Vince Staples was on that bill too.
Sometimes, I wish I took a simpler route. Instead of having demons that's as big as my house.
And I kind of still believe it's still the best Tiny Desk, but he is in the top 2 for Tiny Desk performances. So shout out to my wife for getting me this for Christmas.
But there's really only like 2 white rappers that I can think of. Like, to me, the best white rapper of all time is LP, and then probably Mac. Those are the two white rappers that I fuck with the most. And it's for every single thing that, I'm a white dude, obviously, but like it's for everything that Reed is saying here. Like, those are my 2 favorite. Like, LP is just LP. He is who he is. He respects the culture. He builds up within the culture. He pushes within the culture, but he is 100% himself. Mac was the same way, kept growing in the same type of way. Eminem, Eminem is Eminem. He's a one of one in his type of manner. So it's really kind of hard to compare Eminem to anything else because his entire popularity was, I was in 11th grade when Eminem just skyrocketed on the TRL scene, got the cosign from Dr. Dre. I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about Eminem's character. I don't really like his music at all, but like Eminem is just like an other in that type of sense to me.
Mac Miller fan here. Be on the lookout for my Balloonerism review later this week. I just wanted to say happy birthday to Mac Miller, RIP. We embraced you, brother. You was one of us and we knew it. And, I hope you up there in heaven enjoying yourself. I hope you have found peace. I hope you in heaven smiling down on us, Mac. We love you. We appreciate you, man. We knew you was one of us, dog. And I hate to use your birthday to compare you to a lame like Post Malone, but I want people in the culture to understand the difference, to understand why we embrace you and why we reject others. We saw you. We felt you. We love you. And I'm pretty sure I speak from everybody within the culture. There's not very many people that have said negative things about Mac Miller. You could rap. You got introspective, you were deep, you have an amazing voice, and you contributed to this hip-hop thing. You embraced hip-hop, you pushed the genre forward, and you didn't push the genre away. Mac, we love you.
It's a great video. That's a great video. Shouts to Reed.
What happened to the next big...
That was my first video of watching Reed, so shouts to Reed My Soul. Looks like he's got a handful of videos here. Might want to check out some of these. The mid tier is gone. That's an interesting idea. Okay, shouts to Read My Soul. Yeah, the only other thing that I will say to that is just kind of what I already said, which was I feel the white rapper problem is more of a systemic problem. That it just kind of, it's very easy to make Post Malone or Miley Cyrus the poster children for vulturism, or even DJ Vlad or Adam 22, people of that nature. But I look at them as part of, they are just symptoms, or they're the result, if you will, of the problems that we have in the United States of America. And realistically, I always get, it's become a running joke because I say capitalism all the time on the show, but it really is. It's a function of us caring more about making money than the the merit of something, and trying to profit off of everything. And when you bring everything all the way back, if Post Malone could just be who he was all the time and didn't have to worry about it, maybe he would have never made hip hop in the first place. Possibly. maybe he would have been a little bit more true to himself, and maybe he wouldn't, or maybe his starting point would have been a little bit different. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's a good video. Again, not trying to kind of cope or not trying to give them any bail, but I do think that a lot of times we tend to look at the individual instead of the system that is actually causing the problem. So shouts to Read My Soul. Good video.